Hi, this is No Ordinary Voice of Spiritual Ventriloquism. You are listening to the dummy himself. Well, a couple of thoughts this morning. We'll go up to Shabbat. Pastor Dal did a video yesterday entitled, Can a Man or Woman, I think he meant, can a man and a woman be married without a license? And, obviously, all kinds of things enter into this. Questions, complaints, fears about, I noticed in some of the commentaries about the comments concerning the protections of women. And I mean, at this point, it's almost laughable that those types of comments would even be brought up, because when you really look at it, there are very few protections that are offered women in this Gentile society. There may be some things after the fact, but that's being brokered, and also the systems are getting their cut off of that. So, let's face it, you're a cash cow. Anytime you contract with third-party partnerships, you're a cash cow, and your decision making has been extremely limited, and a lot of the power that you think you have has actually been surrendered in a guardian ward relationship arrangement to the state. We'll talk more on that later. So we'll call that a LGP is formed. Can a marriage be performed? Can a Hebrew man, a woman, be married without a license? And the answer to that question is, of course they can. Now, if you want to get a marriage license from the state, that's fine, but you're going to have to get a Super King mattress for your wedding night to accommodate the judge, the court clerks, the paralegals, the 2 lawyers, and the Department of Homeland Security, or the Department of, Human Services. And, to me, that's kind of a crowded honeymoon, so, to say the least, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're forming, it's like a spring rain and all the worms coming up out of the ground and clustering together. That's that's what comes to mind. And, worms are unclean, so, whatever. But anyway, let's talk about the most sacred document in the Hebrew faith. Now, the most sacred document in the Hebrew faith is the Torah, of course. But the most, next to that, the most sacred document in the Hebrew faith is what the Hebrews call the toldoth, or the the wedding sheet. It is a legal contract, a legal binding contract. It is the witness, and it's the legal binding document that a woman has entered into a partnership, a business partnership, I might add. It is business by nature, and the reason why marriages are so, mundane and unsuccessful in this country is because we don't treat our marriages as businesses or corporations. So we don't enter into those things soberly. We don't have defined goals and charters in mind. Okay? But yes, that is the most sacred document in the Hebrew religion, or the Hebrew faith, I should say, is the toldoth, or the bridal sheet. It was upon the consummation of the marriage that was presented to the parents of both the bride and the groom, and that was a witness and a testimony that that contract was entered into, 1, willingly, and 2, that there was no fraud involved. It was proof that this contract was entered into without any pretentious fraud being involved. It was customary, at least outside of the bridal chamber or house or whatever, that the parents would, on that night, the parents didn't party. Everybody else partied and had a good time. Got, at least in the case of Jacob, he got rather sloshed. Got the bait and switch, paid for his brother's sins against his brother. So, he pretended to be Esau, and Leah pretended to be Rachel, right or wrong, for whatever ultimate good and purposes that might come out of a situation, the wheels of government always roll on. So, in Yah's government. So, anyway, the parents would stand without so that there, couldn't be any possible shenanigans. If you were bombed and 100 yards away or something like that, there's all kinds of room there for you to, maybe make things appear as though they weren't, but they would be very close in proximity to the building or place where the bride and groom would then consummate their marriage. Back then it was a tent. And then that contract, that legal binding agreement, was then presented to the parents as a legal document. It was kept in the house of the bride's father so that no evil accusation, if any evil accusation ever arose against her, then they could present that, and then the man, the husband, would be immersed, which means he would be fined and taxed in 100 shekels of silver, and then that would then go to the father and be held in trust. In other words, if he ever wanted to see his money back again, he'd keep his mouth shut and not blaspheme this man's daughter who had been faithful. Those are the legal protections that are made in Hebrew law. People are concerned about legal protections today in this Gentile society because we're all crooks. All right? Let's get right down to it. We've learned how to use the art of pen and legislation to, make things seem as though they're not. And therefore, women are subjugated to the law, which deals very one-sided, usually. And ultimately, a woman is always left uncovered, out of the will of Yah in this society. And therefore, Torah, again, is in a bridge. So the most legal sacred document in Torah is the toldoth, the bridal sheet, next to the Torah itself. And even in a sense, that has direct reference back to the Torah itself, because when Moses had made an end of addressing the people of the marriage covenant vows that Israel, a collective bride, a polygynous bride, was making toward their Elohim, he then took blood and he sprinkled the people. In other words, that was a testimony and a witness that they were entering into this legal binding agreement of their own free will, and that they were presumably entering into this legal agreement without deceit or fraud being present. So therefore, the people received the law, the Torah, the marriage contract by Moses. And if you fast forward this to the book of Hazun, in the book of Revelation, it talks about 144,000 of the 12 tribes of Israel, 12,000 from each tribe. It talks about, and it also says that they are virgins. And it also says they are dressed in linen, fine linen, clean and white. Here we're going back to the same thing again. The toldoth, the bridal sheet, the wedding garment, and showing Israel's fidelity to their Elohim, and that they have not turned aside to false mighty ones and committed idolatry and whoredom. on their health. So anyway, just a few thoughts and observations on the subject matter at hand. Help you tie some things together. Can a man or a woman be married without a marriage license? Obviously, it should rather be questioned, is a man and woman married with a license? That is, even another question that could be added to the mix. Very good video, very good question. Thought I'd take time to answer, and appreciate the thought-provoking questions that Pastor gives out. Shalom. Have a good Sabbath.